I just finished mowing the lawn, dressed, all in black in the sun, and I'm sweating. And before I do the edging, I'm gonna sit down and take a break for a second. And I thought, well, maybe I'd talk about a couple things that I posted recently. These videos, I guess, are just a different way for me to get this out. I don't know what I'm doing really, and I figure, well, maybe someday in the future, maybe my kids will want to look back at these and share them with their kids or something. I don't know. So I don't expect anybody to really care, but that doesn't mean that what I'm saying isn't important to me, I guess. So recently I shared an image, some graffiti about Stop Starving Gaza, and then I shared this article. Well, it's a transcript of an interview on Democracy Now, talking about the I don't even know if you could call it the expansion of the war on drugs, or the ratcheting up of the war on drugs, or just the republicizing of what we've done before. But it talked about the war on drugs as a war against poor people, primarily, because the poorest are the ones who suffer, and they're the ones caught in the middle who can't get out of the way. And I said that that was my experience with the war on terror, and my experience is mine. I don't think that this is the a formula that should be applied to every soldier who was in Iraq or Afghanistan. They can speak for themselves. This is me speaking for me, what my experience was, and how I thought of it at the time, and how, looking back at it now, I kind of can reinterpret it. So my first deployment was to Ramadi in 2006. We had spent about 5 months sitting in Kuwait, hoping to be called forward to Iraq. And it's a funny thing, because you're hoping to be called forward because you don't want to be the guy who goes home without a CIB, without a combat infantry badge. You want to be a real soldier, but at the same time, you don't want to go there. And you have these two feelings, two very powerful feelings that you can't really unpack. You can't really even admit, and they're fighting with each other. And we get called forward. We go to Ramadi, and the first. This is 2006, so it's a couple years after Fallujah. But the people there expect that's what's happening. We're coming in, and we're going to start at one end of the city, and we're going to go to the other, and anybody that's there is a bad guy. And so, because the people in the city are expecting this, the first couple days that we're there, we're just watching these caravans leaving the city with all of their possessions strapped to a truck, like the Beverly Hillbillies. Everybody who has anywhere to go is getting out of Dodge. And so after these first few days, the only people who are left, theoretically, according to us, the only people who are staying are the bad guys. But really, the only people who are left are the people who had nowhere else to go. They were too poor, too destitute, just had nothing. And so they had to sit in the city and hunker down. And so what we would do is we would go out at night or during the day, or we had, a revolving, there's always somebody in the city, always one of us in the city. But, one platoon would go back and refit and rest and then come back out. And, so there was a rotation. But anyways, what we were doing was we were going house to house, and figuring out who was in the city, taking a census. We had census documents, like the Three Stooges, the non-census takers. And we'd go house to house to house to house and go through these people's homes and destroy them, like I would smash their cabinets, I would throw their things through the window. Anything on the third or on the second floor was going out the window into the courtyard or into the street. We would break, they would collect decorative tiles, and I would smash their decorative tiles, and they would lock their cabinets, and I would bust their cabinets open with breaching tools and just destroy everything. And we would separate women and children into one room, and then military-aged males in another room, and the women and children would get huddled, and the military-aged males would get shoved around and thrown around, and then we would go in the room and we'd put them in these uncomfortable positions, with their hands against the wall and their feet walked out as far as they could go. And I would walk through the rooms, and if one of them said something, I would use my foot and just lift one of their feet up off the ground, and because they're so walked out, they would just fall face first into the ground. And this kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that we do. Now, probably at least half the houses in the city were abandoned. We were on the south side of the Euphrates in this neighborhood of Ramadi called Tamim. And so like half the houses at least were abandoned. And one morning, we're going house to house to house. It's still early in the morning. So the houses we're going into, everyone's still asleep, and we go into this house, and we go through the house. There's not a stick of furniture in the house. The only thing in this house is this pot in the sink with this rotting food in it that's just crawling with maggots. And then we go outside into the courtyard, and there's this family sleeping out there, and they've got their goats with them, and there's goat shit everywhere. And we go out there, and one of the children in the family is suffering from some kind of, I don't even know what it is to give it a name, but she has some physical deformations. She's unable to talk. She's in bad shape. She's maybe 10 years old, and we scare her. And she messes herself. And we, go through the drill. Men and women, women and children in one room, military-age males in another. So we have the father and his teenage boy in one room, and the mother, we keep her in the courtyard with the girls. And the goats have had free reign in this house, and they've just crapped everywhere. And we start talking to this guy, and start asking him about what's going on in the neighborhood, and where so and so is, and tell us this and tell us that, and we're shoving him around. And we had this interpreter then who was, so Ramadi is a Sunni city. We have this interpreter who's from Najaf, which is this Shia holy city, and this is right as the tensions between Sunni and Shia are kind of peaking. And so, this guy is not reliable, but we don't care because he gets rough with these people. Whoever he's talking to, he smacks them around. He carried a 50 caliber bullet, and he would take that 50 caliber bullet out and stab people with it like that while he was talking to them. And so we thought this guy was great. Like, yeah, this is the way all Iraqis should be, And how else do you expect us to find the bad guys if these cowards, these sniveling cowards aren't man enough to to tell us where they are. You know, I don't want to be in this country. I don't want to be doing this, but I'm here because you, sir, with your goats crapping all over the house, are unwilling to do what needs to be done, so I have to come here and do it for you, you know? So yeah, of course we love this interpreter, and so we're talking to this guy and treating him roughly, and finally he's had enough, and he asks us, you know, why should I tell you anything? Why should I? You don't care about me. You don't care about my family. You don't care that my daughter is sick. You're not going to help us. And I remember it being me, but I may be misremembering. But if it wasn't me in this instance, it was me in other instances. So it doesn't really matter. But I remember when the interpreter, you know, translated what this guy was supposedly saying, but I believe it. I think because he had that look on his face, his body language was just like, you know what, I'm not going to play this game. And so he interpreted this, you know, like, you guys don't care about me, and I was like, what do you mean we don't care? Like, you don't care. Your daughter, you don't care that your daughter's sick. You got her sleeping in goat feces. And I reached back and I smacked him across the face as hard as I could. You know, like, I'll show you to be a sniveling friggin' coward. And you know, I thought at the time, like, man, I really taught this guy a lesson. You know, I'm weeding out the cowardly Arab, you know, and I'm gonna find the bad guys doing this, you know. And it didn't dawn on me till years later thinking about it. You know, the whole time, I had assumed that this house that didn't have a stick of furniture in it was this guy's home, that he lived there. And it wasn't. This was an abandoned house. You know, the people who owned it left a pot of food in the sink to rot, and this guy had nothing. He had nothing. The only thing he had to his name was a handful of goats that he had to take with him from place to place and hope could live long enough that he could sell them and maybe use that money to do something for his family, get a better situation for his family, you know. Maybe. But, you know, that's all he had. And I hated him for those goats, for letting those goats in the house like that, and for having his family laying out in the courtyard full of goat crap. And I hated him for it, but I never understood that, you know, until later, that no, these were all he had. It's all he had in the world was these kids and these goats. And he was just trying to hang on, trying to make it through today to tomorrow, and then figure out the next day, and hopefully he can keep his family out of danger and keep himself out of harm's way, and just hold on long enough to you know, buy 5 more goats or who knows what, you know. And this was who I was taking out all the injustices of this war on. This is who I was causing to suffer for all the horrible things that were going on in this country. This guy who was powerless to do anything about those things, and who was the primary sufferer for those things. You know, he was already paying the price. His family was already paying the price for all the horrible things that were going on. Whoever was causing it, you know, he was paying the price. And it wasn't enough. I had to come into that house and make him pay more. I had to exact a pound of flesh. I had to get my pound of flesh from him, you know. And that's the kind of experiences I'm talking about when I say that, you know, in my experience, the war on terror was a war against poor people. And that's what the war on drugs has been and will continue to be in America and outside of America. And that's what this war in Gaza is. It's a war against the people who just can't get out of the way because they have nowhere to go. And they're going to be punished for for already suffering all the indignities of this war, you know. And we're going to stand by and let it happen. And we're going to put up our little things on Facebook and our little memes and, you know, do whatever, and we're just going to let it happen. And you know, the only people who, you know, have any guts are like the friggin' people like Greta Thunberg, who are willing to put their lives on the line, willing to get on a boat with food and go there. You know, in my book, the only heroes in this, the only people doing anything remotely just, are people like her, because they're willing to put their lives on the line for it. You know, to go and bring some measure, to try to bring some measure of relief to that father with his goats. The relief that I should have brought, but didn't.